My name is Madison Hayes, and for years, I believed my marriage to Ryan Parker was everything I had ever wanted: secure, passionate, and full of shared dreams. Ryan and I met at a tech conference in San Francisco 5 years ago. I was a freelance digital strategist, he was climbing the ladder at Parker and Wells Consulting. Our connection was instant: witty banter over overpriced lattes, debates about startups, and late-night walks along the Embarcadero. By the time we exchanged rings in a minimalist loft downtown, I was convinced he was the one. But, as it often does, reality crept in quietly, whispering truths I wasn't ready to hear. It began with small things: texts that went unanswered for hours, a sudden obsession with his wardrobe, extra cautious phone habits. He once joked about getting a new smartwatch for productivity, but I noticed it never left his wrist. Late nights at the office were followed by weekends, team building, that conveniently overlapped with social media check-ins. There were receipts I didn't recognize: a hotel in Napa, a reservation at a secluded Italian restaurant downtown, all charged to our joint card. Ryan's excuses were smooth, practiced. Business, Madison. You know how it is. I wanted to believe him, desperately. But a gnawing suspicion persisted, a quiet, insistent alarm that something was wrong. The tipping point came one Wednesday evening. Ryan texted, claiming a client dinner would run late. I knew his office's Wi-Fi well enough to check when he left his laptop unattended. His status showed offline. Curious, anxious, I decided to drive downtown. I parked near the trendy hotel district and scrolled through Google Maps for the restaurant he might be visiting. That's when I saw it: his car, a sleek black Tesla, parked right outside the boutique hotel on Pine Street. My heart dropped. I clutched the steering wheel, trembling, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Stepping out, I followed him discreetly to the hotel entrance. The lobby was bathed in soft amber light. He wasn't alone. Ryan walked out, holding hands with a woman I had never seen before. Her auburn hair gleamed in the lobby lights, her designer coat swishing with every step. Their faces were close, intimate, smiling as though the world outside did not exist. My stomach churned. Every scene I had envisioned in my worst nightmares flashed vividly before me. Ryan's eyes caught mine. For a split second, recognition. Then panic. Madison? His voice faltered. The woman, Chloe Bennett, looked from him to me, her gaze sharp, wary, then slowly registering the betrayal. Ryan tried to take a step toward me, but my hand, raised like a shield, froze him in place. Stay back, I said, voice low, steady. I walked away, heels clicking against the pavement, heart hammering. I didn't run, I wanted him to see my control. That night, I lay in our modern loft, the faint scent of his cologne lingering on the sheets. I was numb, angry, and yet a strange clarity had settled over me. I could feel a plan forming, a plan that would reclaim the power Ryan had stolen from me. The following days were meticulous. I collected evidence quietly: text messages, emails, receipts, hidden photos from his phone when he wasn't looking. Chloe and Ryan's affair wasn't a one-night mistake, it was an ongoing deception. Each piece of evidence fueled my resolve. I refused to confront him impulsively. Revenge required patience, strategy. I maintained my role as the perfect wife, smiling at dinner, chatting about the weekend, even suggesting we go on a date night, a perfect cover to observe his habits closely. The betrayal stung, but I kept my emotions masked, knowing every move needed to be calculated. One Friday evening, while Ryan was supposedly at a networking event, I discovered a new twist. His Instagram DMs included Chloe sending selfies from exotic locations, captioned with flirty remarks. The audacity of their secretive lives fueled the fire inside me. I realized I had the power to bring everything crashing down: social status, reputation, and the perfect image he had so carefully constructed. I crafted my plan over cups of coffee and late-night journaling sessions. I would use the tools of modern life against him. Social media, email, professional networks, everything would expose his duplicity. But I didn't want humiliation, I wanted shock. I wanted him to feel the same betrayal he had inflicted on me. Opportunity arrived sooner than I expected. Ryan, ever the socialite, suggested hosting a company dinner party at our loft, a small gathering of colleagues and high-profile clients. Just a casual evening, he said, friends, networking, a chance to unwind. I smiled, concealing the storm brewing within me. Sounds wonderful, I said. The week leading to the party, I meticulously planned. Invitations were digital, curated to attract not only his closest professional circle but also mutual acquaintances who would appreciate subtle revelations. I redesigned our loft, blending modern minimalist aesthetics with soft, inviting touches. Candles, low-hanging pendant lights, a playlist mixing jazz with soft electronica. I wanted the perfect setting, a mask of normalcy before the storm. On the night of the dinner, I wore a fitted navy blue dress, hair pulled into a sleek bun, heels that clicked sharply with every step, commands of silent authority. Guests arrived in pairs, laughing, chatting, unaware of the undercurrents. Ryan was radiant, effortlessly charming, unaware that every gesture, every smile, was being measured against the betrayal I had uncovered. As the dinner progressed, I subtly guided conversations, steering topics toward trust, loyalty, and work-life balance. I watched Ryan shift nervously, sensing that something was slightly off, but he had no idea what was coming. The key moment approached with dessert. I presented small gift boxes for each guest, elegantly wrapped, and casually suggested they open them. Inside each box, carefully curated, were printouts of Ryan and Chloe's correspondence, screenshots, hotel bookings, and photos, all evidence of his double life. I watched the confusion ripple across the room as the guests realized the shocking truth. Ryan's face turned pale. Madison, what is this? He stammered, his voice cracking. I met his gaze, cold, steady. This is the truth, Ryan. Every lie, every secret, every betrayal. Whispers spread through the room. Some guests recoiled, others gasped audibly. Chloe, who had been invited under the guise of a professional acquaintance, froze when she realized her role in the evening's revelation. Her phone clattered to the floor, her expression a mix of panic and disbelief. Ryan tried to salvage the situation, stumbling over explanations, but the evidence was indisputable. Colleagues exchanged concerned glances, a few had phones out, documenting the drama. The loft, once a stage of elegance and control, had become a theater of revelation. As the evening drew to an awkward close, I realized something profound. This wasn't merely revenge, it was liberation. For years, I had allowed trust to define me, to anchor my identity to Ryan's actions. Now, I felt unshackled, powerful, capable of reclaiming my narrative. Ryan's career would survive, perhaps, but his image, the carefully curated persona, had crumbled. Chloe would think twice before entangling herself with another married man. And I? I had discovered a resilience within myself I never knew existed. That night, after guests departed and the loft was quiet, I poured a glass of wine and looked out over the city skyline. Lights twinkled like tiny stars, indifferent to human deceit and drama. But I was different. I had witnessed betrayal, planned justice, and survived the storm with my dignity intact. Madison Hayes was no longer just a trusting wife. She was a force, deliberate, and unflinching. And the story was only beginning. The dinner party had ended, but the echoes of that night reverberated in ways Ryan Parker would soon never forget. Madison Hayes had delivered her quiet yet devastating judgment, exposing the truth of his betrayal before colleagues, friends, and the woman he thought he could hide behind. Ryan's carefully cultivated persona of a dedicated, faithful husband and rising star at Parker and Wells Consulting, was now in tatters. Ryan sat in the empty loft, his hands shaking, a half-empty glass of scotch on the table beside him. He couldn't bring himself to move, couldn't even comprehend the scope of what had just happened. Madison had been calm, composed, even radiant in her navy blue dress, every movement deliberate, every word precise. She hadn't yelled, she hadn't cried, she had simply laid bare his deceit and allowed the world to witness it. Chloe Bennett, meanwhile, was equally devastated. Her Instagram post, which she had spent hours curating to showcase her perfect life, would never recover. Within hours, whispers of the Parker and Hayes dinner party had spread across their social circles. Mutual acquaintances posted vague but loaded messages. Some truths are better left hidden. Ryan's reputation in his professional and social spheres was being questioned, and it had only been one night. The next morning, Madison woke early, sipping her black coffee while scrolling through her phone. She saw the fallout in real time, messages from friends, colleagues, and even a few strangers commending her courage, calling it poetic justice and well-deserved exposure. She didn't gloat. She simply allowed herself a quiet satisfaction, knowing she had reclaimed her power. Ryan, on the other hand, woke to a storm of missed calls, texts, and emails. Each notification was a sharp reminder that the world now knew the truth he had worked so hard to conceal. At the office, the fallout was immediate. Ryan's assistant, unaware of the dinner party's details, handed him a stack of printouts from clients and partners questioning his professionalism. Gossip traveled fast in corporate corridors, and Ryan felt the walls closing in. His image of the devoted husband, the golden boy of finance, was now under scrutiny, and there was no PR strategy, no spin, that could completely undo the damage. Ryan tried to reach Madison, to talk, to explain, to beg even. She remained unreachable, focusing instead on herself, her career, and her own healing. She had learned the truth about betrayal and had seen the reality of deception firsthand. Her feelings for Ryan had not just been hurt, they had been weaponized, transformed into a calculated force. And now, she was in control. In the following weeks, Madison didn't just sit back. She strategically reshaped her narrative, leveraging social media and professional networks to assert her independence and success. Ryan's colleagues received emails clarifying rumors indirectly, not blaming but subtly exposing the truth. Madison began attending events alone, her presence confident, her interactions sharp and deliberate. She was reclaiming her life in ways that made the world take notice. Ryan, meanwhile, struggled with sleepless nights. Every text, email, and notification reminded him of his exposure. His colleagues whispered in hallways, clients questioned loyalty, and Chloe disappeared from social media as quickly as she had entered his life. Ryan realized he had lost far more than trust, he had lost the comfort of control, the illusion of a life perfectly managed. One Saturday afternoon, Madison decided to take the next step. She scheduled a casual brunch with a few friends, including those who had been witnesses to the dinner party revelation. The topic inevitably turned to trust, betrayal, and relationships. Madison shared her insights, careful not to reveal too much, but ensuring the conversation highlighted the lessons learned and the importance of self-respect. Her words were measured, intelligent, and cutting where necessary. Ryan, hearing through mutual friends, felt the sting of every insight, every anecdote that mirrored his failures. Madison also began considering legal counsel, curious about her options in terms of assets and marital agreements. While her ultimate goal wasn't revenge through litigation, she understood the power of protecting herself legally. Ryan's affair wasn't just a personal betrayal, it had professional implications. Documents, contracts, and his digital footprint could all serve as leverage if necessary. Madison wasn't just emotionally prepared, she was intellectually equipped to handle the situation comprehensively. As the weeks unfolded, Madison noticed subtle shifts in her own psyche. She was no longer the anxious, trusting partner who had once overlooked inconsistencies. Her confidence, independence, and sharp wit had amplified. Every decision she made was informed by experience, and the sting of betrayal had transformed into a refined strategy for her life. Ryan's presence was no longer a comfort but a reminder of a chapter closed with precision and clarity. Ryan attempted to repair the damage, reaching out to Chloe in a half-hearted effort to salvage what he could. Chloe, however, had vanished from his life, deleting her social accounts, blocking his number, and disappearing from mutual contacts. She had learned her own lesson: entanglement with a married man brought chaos and exposure. Ryan faced the consequences of underestimating both women, the wife he betrayed and the woman he thought he could manipulate. Madison, meanwhile, thrived. Her freelance digital career flourished as she secured new clients, attended networking events, and even started a podcast about empowerment, resilience, and navigating complex relationships. She used her experience as a backdrop for discussion, never explicitly naming Ryan or Chloe, but her insights resonated widely. Followers admired her composure, strategic thinking, and articulate expression of personal growth. The narrative of betrayal had been transformed into one of empowerment, and Madison became the face of measured, intelligent resilience. As winter settled over the city, Madison found herself walking along the waterfront one evening, the cool breeze brushing against her face. She reflected on the months past, the initial shock, the meticulous gathering of evidence, the execution of her revelation at the dinner party, and the unfolding fallout. Each step in the journey had been deliberate, a blend of instinct and intellect. She no longer felt anger, only clarity. Ryan's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been a catalyst for growth, independence, and self-discovery. The final blow, however, was yet to come. Ryan, in a desperate attempt to reclaim some semblance of dignity, scheduled a company-wide meeting to address rumors and restore confidence. Madison, anticipating the move, sent a concise but impactful communication to key stakeholders, ensuring the truth remained contextualized. When Ryan began speaking at the meeting, his words were interrupted by pointed questions, informed colleagues, and subtle reminders of the documented events from the dinner party. His attempts to redirect attention failed. Madison watched from afar, the orchestration complete. She had ensured that every avenue of potential damage control was preemptively addressed, leaving Ryan exposed and unable to manipulate the narrative. Through all this, Madison never wavered in her focus. Her revenge was not about public shaming or humiliation, it was about control, strategy, and reclaiming her life with intelligence and foresight. By the end of Part 2, Ryan Parker was facing the true consequences of his actions: fractured trust, professional skepticism, and the stark realization that betrayal has a cost beyond personal guilt. Madison Hayes, on the other hand, had emerged resilient, empowered, and unshakably composed. After the company-wide meeting, Madison Hayes felt an unusual sense of calm. The fallout from the dinner party had settled, Ryan Parker's attempts to regain control had failed spectacularly, and Chloe Bennet had vanished from social media entirely. Madison, however, wasn't finished. Her revenge wasn't rooted in public humiliation alone. It was about closure, and ensuring that Ryan fully understood the consequences of his betrayal, not just socially and professionally, but personally. The morning after the meeting, Madison received an unexpected email. It was from Chloe, who had resurfaced with a cryptic message: "I never wanted this. I'm done. Ryan should know what he's lost." Madison smiled faintly, recognizing the satisfaction in Chloe's admission of defeat. Ryan's web of deceit was unraveling on all fronts, and even those complicit in his betrayal were acknowledging their own mistakes. Madison began to craft the final stage of her plan. She arranged a weekend getaway under the guise of reconciliation. Ryan, desperate and naive, interpreted the invitation as an opportunity to mend fences. They would go to a cabin in the Sierra Nevada mountains, remote and private. Madison ensured that all communications and travel details were meticulously planned. It was her stage now, and she was in control. The drive to the cabin was quiet. Ryan, tense and hopeful, kept attempting small talk, peppering their conversation with apologies and justifications. Madison listened, her eyes calm, her expressions neutral. Inside, however, she catalogued each word, each gesture, and each sign of lingering arrogance. She was patient, and she had all the time she needed to orchestrate the climax. Upon arrival, the cabin was secluded, surrounded by towering pines and the distant sound of a rushing creek. Madison suggested a hike to clear their minds, a perfect metaphor for the emotional journey that was about to unfold. Ryan agreed eagerly, thinking this was a chance for genuine connection. Madison, with subtle precision, guided their path deeper into the woods, where cell signals were weak and the isolation emphasized the gravity of their situation. At the peak of the trail, overlooking a serene valley, Madison stopped. The view was breathtaking, sunlight scattered through the pine needles, casting a golden glow. Ryan looked around, awestruck, and Madison spoke, her voice steady and commanding. "Ryan, do you remember our vows? The promises we made?" she asked. He nodded, swallowing nervously, his hands fidgeting. "Yes, Madison. I know I messed up, and I..." "Don't," she interrupted gently but firmly. "I don't want excuses. I want understanding. I want acknowledgement. Do you know what trust means? Do you understand what you destroyed?" Ryan's face paled. He stammered, trying to formulate words that would suffice. But Madison wasn't looking for words, she was looking for reflection. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small, sleek tablet. On it were slides and documentation she had prepared meticulously, screenshots, receipts, photos, timelines. Ryan's eyes widened as the evidence was laid bare before him once more, in a format that was impossible to ignore or dismiss. "This isn't about humiliation, Ryan," Madison said, her tone measured, almost clinical. "It's about truth. This is your reality now. Not the narrative you wanted to spin. Not the facade you maintained. This is your life, and this is the consequence of your actions." Ryan, pale and speechless, finally grasped the weight of her words. His career, his relationships, his reputation, all affected by his deceit. But beyond that, the personal loss was palpable. Madison's trust, her love, and the partnership they once shared were irrevocably broken. Madison then revealed the final twist. She had arranged for Ryan's clients and colleagues to receive a confidential summary of the documented events, accompanied by a professional analysis of trust, ethics, and integrity in personal and corporate life. It wasn't public, but it ensured that Ryan's professional credibility would be permanently under scrutiny, a reminder that deceit carries real consequences. "I want you to understand fully, Ryan," Madison continued, her eyes locking onto his. "I've rebuilt myself, step by step. You had your choice. I had mine. And now, you're left with the truth. There's no going back." Tears welled in Ryan's eyes, not just from the professional fallout but from the crushing realization of personal betrayal. Chloe was gone. Friends and colleagues had already formed judgments. Every action he had taken to preserve his image had failed. And the woman he had underestimated, the wife he thought he could deceive, had not only survived the betrayal but had transformed it into empowerment. The hike back to the cabin was silent. Ryan walked beside Madison, subdued, reflective, stripped of arrogance. Madison felt a profound sense of closure. The storm had passed, and the landscape of their relationship was irrevocably changed. It wasn't anger that drove her anymore, it was clarity, and the satisfaction of seeing justice delivered through strategy and intelligence. Over the next few weeks, Madison continued her path of independence. She expanded her professional ventures, gained recognition for her digital strategies, and nurtured personal growth. Ryan attempted to apologize publicly and privately, but Madison, steadfast, maintained boundaries. She wasn't cruel, but she was firm. Justice had been served through consequences, not vengeance. By the end of the season, Madison stood on a balcony overlooking the city skyline, the winter air crisp against her face. She reflected on the journey, the betrayal, the meticulous planning, the execution of her strategy, and the ultimate empowerment she had gained. Ryan Parker was a chapter closed, a lesson etched in her life story. Chloe Bennett had vanished, a footnote of the past. Madison Hayes had emerged, stronger, wiser, and unshakably confident. The final reckoning had been achieved not through rage, but through intelligence, strategy, and measured action. The narrative was hers, reclaimed, and she walked forward with an unyielding sense of self. Madison smiled faintly, sipping her coffee. The sun rose over the horizon, illuminating the city in golden hues. A new day, a new chapter, and a life fully her own. And in that moment, Madison Hayes knew she had won, not through humiliation or public spectacle, but through empowerment, control, and the reclaiming of her own narrative.